I am Ethan Reeve, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
All right, so we are live with Ethan Reeve. Coach, it's a pleasure to sit down with you. I've been following your work for, I don't know how long, a long time, but we have a lot of mutual friends and a lot of mutual interests, so this will be fun. But for those that don't know, Ethan Reeve is a strength and conditioning coach. And tell us how you got started. And
well, of course, my sport was wrestling, but I had done a lot of sports when I was in, middle school and high school. I played football and played basketball, even when I wrestled. So I'd have basketball practice in the morning, and I'd practice with the varsity when I was in the 7th grade in the afternoons. And then I ran track. I was, a half-miler, hurdler, that sort of thing, and played linebacker and also running back in football.
Yeah.
And did that up at least till my junior year in high school. And, I was always interested in strength training. Of course, the big thing for me was a lot of body weight stuff. So from the 8th grade to about the 12th grade, I would do 500 push-ups every day.
Wow.
So but I had a way of doing them.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. Well, the thing I'm probably most known for is density training.
Right.
And that is basically making sure you build your quality or your volume with quality repetition. So if I were to have you do like 10 push-ups and 5 or 6 chins or whatever, I'd make sure that we have quality when do it. So you need to make sure that time is spaced far enough away from each other so you can do the quality reps. So if you're you're in a business and you got a chin-up bar at your work, let's just say, for instance,
some
you have
do.
that. Some people do.
I do.
Yeah. So what you do is you want to get, let's say you want to start doing chins, and you haven't done them in a while, but let's say you can do maybe 6 chins in a row, and that's it. So what I would do is I say, okay, I want you to do 3 chins every 60 minutes for 8 hours, 10 hours. And it's kind of like they use the term greasing the groove.
Right.
You just you're flexing, you're getting to feel it, but it's not killing you. You walk away, and in 10 hours, you've gotten 30 chins.
Right.
Okay. And then you can start building on that. And if either you start increasing the reps within that set, or you start condensing the time. Instead of maybe an hour, every hour you might go to 45 minutes and 30 minutes and 15 minutes. And then pretty soon you're doing like 10 sets. Like the big thing from our wrestlers was to be able to do 10 sets of 10 in 10 minutes.
Okay. Pull-ups or chin-ups?
Chin-ups, doing chins. But let's say power clean is a big thing for me. So back when I started doing this at the University of Tennessee, I would go and watch the throwers on the track team because they were the best at snatches and cleans and jerks and stuff. And I didn't know anything about it. I was doing body weight, doing a lot of farming and things like that, and got strong that way. But these guys were good, so I'd watch them, and then I had a way to sneak into the room at University of Tennessee to jimmy the door, and I'd get in there at 6 o'clock every morning, and I would go in there and put my body weight on the bar. So if I weighed 165 that day, I'd put 165 on the bar, and I would do 10 power cleans, and then I'd walk over, and they had a chin-up bar on the wall, and I'd do 10 overhand chin-ups. And I'd come back and do 10 power cleans and then 10 underhand chin-ups. There was no neutral grip, none of that stuff. And I had to do that in 20 minutes. And I did that 7 days a week for about 2.5 years. And, man, it made the world of difference for me as a wrestler, especially my takedowns, stand-up takedowns.
So as you're improving and you're getting better, are you putting more weight on the bar, or are you just decreasing the time?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I could get it in that time. And then if I felt pretty good, I would stick around. I'd do some front squats and deadlifts. The big thing for wrestlers is you have to be married to resistance. You have to love hard work. You have to love the stress and strain of training. And if you love that, then you're going to go well. You'll do very well in wrestling. And just like, don't find the things that are easy. When you walk in a room, when you walk into a weight room, everybody likes to do toe raises and wrist curls and bicep curls and things like that. But chin-ups are different. Deadlift is a different animal. I would do I do about 3 to 5 sets of 5 with 405 on deadlifts at 165 pounds.
Wow.
It's not heavy. I never went real heavy because back in those days, like if you do a power clean, everything was metal plates.
Yes.
And so what you do, you'd have to catch it back on your thigh. So you'd have to remain vertical, catch it back on your thigh. Man, your traps and your forearms and hands got so strong from doing that. It's like a plyometric effect on your body. But, boy, you got strong doing it that way. So it made actually by doing that power cleans like that, my deadlifts were easy.
Really?
Yeah.
That improved your deadlift. That's really cool. So we have a workout that we do with your name on it, and it's almost that, but not chin-ups. It's it's with push-ups. So it's 10 power cleans at body weight, 10 push-ups.
Yeah.
Every 2 minutes you
That's
get
good.
that done. So whatever, if you can do it in 45 seconds, then you got the rest of the 2 minutes to rest.
Yeah.
But getting it done in 20 minutes, that's a very challenging workout.
It's very difficult.
So it's interesting to hear that was your main workout.
That was a big thing for me. That was the 2 years that I was All-American. And, man, it just made it easy to just lift people. And my drilling became so much easier. All the drilling of takedowns, lifting people up, it was just easy.
So were you a little bit ahead of your time at that point? Like, were other wrestlers on your team doing similar workouts? Or
Well, no, I would drag people in there with me.
Uh-huh.
I use the term champions come in pairs.
Yeah.
You've got to have somebody with you because you have to have somebody push you. Otherwise, what happens, a lot of people, they come off the break and they get back in the team workout. It's a lot different. They go, Coach, these are a lot harder than I did the workout you said, but it was easier back at home.
Yeah.
It's tougher when you have your teammates working. So if you have a group of guys out here, I'm telling you, it's better. It's tougher, because you're competing.
Yeah. You're competing, and then also there's camaraderie and there's shared suffering, and that bonds people like nothing else, I think.
That's exactly it. And that's what we try to do. Basically, what I told you, the term champions come in pairs comes from wrestling. So if you and I are working out together, you're having a bad day, I've got to kick your butt, son.
Right.
I got to call you a candy, whatever, and get you fired up. Or I've got to be smart, depending on how you are. How do I encourage you? How do I talk to you to make you feel more confident, to make you feel better? I got to build you up, give you a positive.
Is that the coach's job or the workout partner's job?
I make the wrestlers do it. I do it with almost every team I've ever worked with. It's a thing that it's the big thing is, deep down inside, I'm an educator, and a lot of kids need to be a little more selfless instead of selfish. They need to come out of their own thing and start thinking about how can I help somebody else. Now, the big thing is, as a role model and as a leader, you want to show your work ethic, and people see that and they go, "Wow, I like that." You want that. But when you step off the platform and then your partner steps on the platform, that's a great time to teach and coach, to get outside of yourself and help another person. And it just makes so much better. Plus, if you're in wrestling and you get better at that fireman's carry, then I got to get better at stopping you.
Right.
And so it just goes hand in hand. And so what I've done is taken that philosophy of wrestling into strength and conditioning.
And so when you're doing that in strength and conditioning, what we were talking about just a little bit before was you were looking at my setup out here, and you can't. Most of this is audio. The people that are listening, most people listen to this, but it's a 30-foot rig. Every 10 feet is a squat rack on both sides. So there's 6 squat racks and pull-up bars all down the sides, and I've got ropes in the middle. So what you were talking about is how you took the wrestling, what you had learned in wrestling from the circle, and bringing it into a setup like that, like the half rack, and using the other side of the rack.
Yes.
And so explain how that came from wrestling necessarily.
Well, if you walk into a wrestling room, what you'll see is, if you go to a match, there's one big circle.
Right.
Okay. But when you go to practice, there are small circles because that's where a pair will train. So you and I, if we're going in there, we're going to drill in fireman's carries or duck unders or snap downs. What happens is we basically will stay in that area, in those circles. So, and there might be 20, 30 circles, how many of there are in a practice. Like we had 48 guys out for the team back in the 80s. So we had that many circles, okay, to cover it for 2 guys in a circle. So when I got into strength and conditioning, I was trying to take that philosophy. Champions come in pairs, guys working together, people working together. Now, sometimes you have to put 3 in a group, and that's fine too. But the idea is now, how can I get more of those circles in the room? Like when I went to University of Alabama, and I was at Macaulay School, I went down to visit, and LeBaron Carruthers was the strength coach there. He had 8 benches, had 8 inclines, 8 squat racks, 8 power racks, and then 8 platforms. And his platforms were on carpet at that time, and they had just won the national championship back in 1992. And I went there afterwards in that spring after that, and I went down to watch it. The thing is, when they go to lift weights, if you've got all this spread out, what happens is maybe that incline and that power rack is not going to be utilized that day. So what happens? It's really, I'd rather combine those so I can do a bench or an incline inside that rack or to that squat stand, and then have more of those. And that's what we started doing.
Right.
And that was back when I was at Macaulay School. We designed all that.
Yeah.
And that's why you see, I mean, all these things is a lot of platforms, and there's a rack there, so you can bench, you can squat, you can incline, you can do whatever you want to from that rack into that platform, and you just see 50 platforms in a room.
Yeah. So how would you decide who was going to pair up with one another?
Normally, I let them choose. I want them to be comfortable with who they have, someone that is going to push each other. But if I start seeing 2 guys are together that shouldn't be together,
right,
I've got to change that scenario.
And then you would take that and say you take that into football or basketball, and you're training those teams. You would be able to communicate that effectively to a different team with the wrestling mindset pretty easily.
Yeah, I don't say wrestling.
Oh,
I just say
champions come in pairs.
Champions come in pairs. Be a good teammate. You got to care about your teammate. Now, I was talking to my wife the other day about this, and there were a couple of football players while I was at Wake Forest that said, "Coach, that's your job. You coach them. I'm not going to do that." They would rather, when they got through lifting, go get a drink of water, not pay attention to their thing. And boy, that ticks me off. That's selfish. If you can't pay attention to your teammate, like if you walked into Gold's Gym right now, a guy's over on the bench, he's getting ready to do a heavy bench, nobody's around, wouldn't you walk over to spot him and coach him up? It's just natural. That's what you do.
Yeah.
You got to care enough. First of all, I got to protect him, but I'll be there to encourage him, how to talk to him, and it's just my nature. That's just what you do.
Yeah. So how have you seen that translates into success of your players or your wrestlers, of your athletes after they're in a program like this, and this becomes like, that's a culture, right? That becomes a culture of caring about your teammate, of encouraging your teammate, of working together as a team, even in an individual sport like at wrestling. I rely on what I have learned in wrestling almost more than I rely on what I learned in college. What I learned, even very specific business practices that I do, it still boils down a lot of times to the culture of what I learned in wrestling when I was a wrestler. The culture of, it's an individual sport, but it's also kind of a team sport. Have you seen a lot of your athletes?
I do it with tennis. I do it with soccer. We won the ACC for the first time in the history at Wake Forest University. It took me a couple of years now to get the system in, but I've done it with rowers where they got to learn to pull together, work together. Tennis players, you got to have somebody across the court that you work out with that's going to be good for you. You got to work together, and so it doesn't matter what sport. But soccer players the same way. They got to come in. So if they were going to come in to work out, I'd say, don't come in by yourself. It's not personal training. You come in with a partner. I'll coach you up, but let's work together.
Always with a partner.
Always going with somebody.
And then how are you changing the training? I mean, obviously a tennis player and a wrestler have very different strength and endurance, and everything is different. There's different requirements for both sports. How would you then look at these different sports and design a program for a different athlete?
Yeah, the term sports specific has come up quite a bit, and I would just tell you it does not matter to me. I would train a swimmer and a diver, and they, doing a squat and doing a clean is good for all of them. Doing a snatch or a jerk, those are just good things for them. Now, they may not go as heavy, but it's athletic. My thing is to develop an athlete that's better in general. If you're more athletic, I give this example. If you have 10 coaches of 10 different sports, head coaches, and there's 100 players, and you line them up from 1 to 100, number 1 being the best, number 100 being the worst. Men's golf coach comes up, he picks a number, and he happens to get number 1 choice. Now is he thinking, well, in the past I haven't had really good athletes. I think I'll take numbers 91 through 100. Or is he saying, oh, no, I'm taking 1 through 10? Of course he is.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get the best athletes. So just with that thought in mind, if we can make them better athletes, we give that coach a better chance to win. We give those athletes a better chance to maximize their potential. In your DNA, you only have so much potential. How can we get them there? What is it going to take for us to get them to maximize their potential? First of all, they got to be athletic. Part of being athletic is they got to be flexible, but they have to be flexible in motion. And tennis players sometimes be a little tight in the hips. My thing is that we need to work on being more mobile. So a lot of hurdle drills, tumbling drills, crawling drills. How can we get them to be more athletic? Start doing bag drills and ladder drills and things like that to get them to be more athletic. And then you start with calisthenics. They've got to learn to handle their body weight first. Then you can start getting into your kettlebells and some medicine balls and that sort of thing.
And so you're maintaining the tumbling throughout all sports.
I believe in the tumbling. Now, the problem we have is we don't have tumbling mats in the room, so I'm going to have to meet those women tennis players or golfers over in the wrestling room. But wrestling has allowed me to do that, to go over there and train over there. So,
and the tumbling that you find the most, I guess, that would transfer to the most sports are like forward rolls, handstands, cartwheels.
Well, just imagine if we put a mat out here and I had you do like 3, 4, 5 rolls in a row without stopping. You and I, because I haven't done it in a while, we would be like dizzy. We're grabbing for sky hooks,
right.
That sort of thing. What happens is the fluid inside your ears gets jumbled up, and you get disoriented. I mean, you can hardly see. Sometimes people get nauseous. We find out what they had for breakfast, that sort of thing. But I've had kids that could not do a forward roll. But what happened is I know that when they can start doing the rolls, forward rolls, backward rolls, diving rolls, split rolls, forward and backward, crawls and things like that, when they can get and do those things without getting dizzy, automatically they're a better baseball player, better basketball player. They're better right. Their kinesthetic and spatial awareness is better. Their vision is better in space. They know where they are. So the tumbling and gymnastic type work is some of the best things you can do for athletes. I will stand by that. In fact, in my opinion, when the kids get to kindergarten age, forget weights and forget sports. Other than maybe a 4-week course in wrestling, a 4-week course in basketball, badminton, volleyball, that's what should be taught. Forget competing. I really, up until the 7th grade, I really think kids should not compete as much. I think they need to learn those sports skills when they're young, but they should be doing jumping jacks and squatting movements and one-legged squats and all kinds of gymnastics and tumbling type things. And when they do that when they're young, jumping and running, now when they get in that 6th, 7th grade and they're starting to compete, now we've done a big favor.
Yeah, because they're just amazing athletes. They can do anything.
Yeah, and then after that, now we can start doing kettlebells. I'll start taking the barbell. I'll be teaching them how to do cleans and jerks and snatches and that sort of thing. But we've got to get them to that point. And I don't worry so much about weight, even during that age. But some kids are more mature. Like you might be very mature in the 7th grade. I can put a little more weight on for you.
Right.
But maybe someone else not. Like when I was at Macaulay, we had a thing in the Bigger, Faster, Stronger magazine where we had like 4 kids on a platform, 3 guys were back here sitting down, and the other guy, we would do squat snatches, squat clean and jerks. We were teaching it. But sometimes it was the bar or maybe a big 5-pound training place. Right. But they were learning technique. So, like Adam and those guys, they went through that. that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
because I was teaching posture, position, tumbling, body awareness and body movement. So
That's awesome. There has been the movement of CrossFit has come through, and they have the CrossFit Kids program, and a lot of what you just outlined is the basis of that program. And but you were doing this long before CrossFit was ever heard of,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the training philosophy is, I believe, it's coming from you, because it's deeply in CrossFit now. All of what you just talked about. So did you have contact with Greg Glassman and those guys in the beginning?
Yeah, he called me up. I was on a trip to, I was driving up to Hershey, PA, and he called me and talked to me for 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically explained my life, what I was doing with push-ups and chin-ups, and how it gravitated into Olympic lifts and squatting and all that stuff. And he was very impressed with that. I think he took a lot of that to
Yeah. Well, the first workout that we talked about right here, the 10 power cleans, 10 pull-ups, and then making sure you're doing that in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he would, or CrossFit has gone into saying, okay, doing it in 20 minutes, that's great.
Yeah.
But can you do it in 19? And if you can do it in 19, then you're in better shape than if you could just do it in 20. And if you can do it in 14, then that means you've improved your fitness. Are you following along with that deal?
I don't. I look. There's a point in there. Like, let's take for instance, how did this evolve into taking a 1 rep max?
Mm-hmm.
And so what you do is you at a certain percentage you assign a rep max. Because you don't always have to test every percentage for how many reps you can do there. But what we found is if you start at 100%, that's a 1 rep max. If you go to 95%, that's a 2 RM. And then 92.5 is a 3 RM, 90% is a 4, and it goes all the way down to 50%, which is a 20 RM.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I do is I know basically what is speed, what is power, what is high power, what is strength for percentage, and then what is peaking strength, that sort of thing. So, but let's say you take the percent of 80%. 80% is the highest end of power, because after that the bar will start to slow down. Mm-hmm. All Olympic lifters, now with Olympic lifts you might get a little bit higher and still be able to move the bar pretty quick. Mm-hmm. But eventually what happens is in Olympic lifting, the bar will start to slow down. The ones that win are the ones that get under the bar quicker. So the athleticism of you've got to propel that weight and then you got to relax that body and then get under the bar quick. Mm-hmm. Those are the guys that win, because a lot of guys are strong. Yeah, a lot of guys are actually powerful getting it up, but who can change directions after they've done it and then get under it? That's the athleticism. And that's why I will always do things like power cleans and power snatches, because that element, to just come up and do a clean pull or a snatch pull or something, it's good stuff, great stuff. You got a bad wrist or shoulder, hey, do it. Yeah. But if you can clean it and get under it, man, that's athletic.
Right. And so of course I understand where you're coming from with that, but I guess what I was asking is, you just kind of stopped at the 20-minute and made sure that you were doing that workout in 20 minutes. What if you were doing it in 10 minutes? Do you feel like that is that would be the definition of fitness, that if you do that workout and it's all you can do in 20 minutes, and then you get stronger and you get faster and you can purge lactic acid faster and more efficiently, and then all of a sudden you can do that in 10 minutes.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Then you're in better shape. Yeah.
Here's the difference. CrossFit is a sport in and of itself. Yes. So it's very sport specific for what you do. Mm-hmm. When I work with, let's say, a soccer team, I'm just in general, how can I get them to be more athletic? Right. I'll be honest with you, I don't really think about conditioning. Mm-hmm. You know what I think about? I think about athleticism, mental toughness. How can I ingest some of that, but without cracking them? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How can I be positive with them? I was known as a pretty tough wrestling coach, but for the most part, I was saying 99% of the time I was saying positive things. I was firm on what we were going to do. I would tell a kid, I'm going to ask you to do things. I want to ask you, but please don't misinterpret this. What I mean is you will do those things. I want you to think I'm a nice guy, that kind of thing. But the thing is to be positive with kids. Kids, they love to be not coddled, but they love to be told positive things. We all do. We like a compliment. So you give them a compliment. Tell them, because they are doing something. If you walk by and they're doing on the platform, they're doing a front squat, back is straight, chest is out, feet are flat, knees are going out, and boy, it looks good, but the left elbow's dropped a little bit. You don't walk over there and start talking about the left elbow. What you do is you say, man, that's good. I love what you're doing. Look how the feet are flat. Man, driving with the hips, coming down, controlled, and then firing out of there. Go walk down a few platforms. Come back and say, I love what you're doing. It's good posture. Love what you're doing. That left elbow's dropping a little bit now, so just be a little mindful. Get the elbow up. You can do it in a way that can still be positive.
Yeah.
And then they listen more.
Well, what you've done also is you've walked down there, you've given positive reinforcement. The kid's like, yeah, this is working. Coach noticed.
Yeah.
And then you wait 5 minutes and you come back and you give them a cue.
Yeah.
They're going to be more receptive to that cue.
Yes.
Definitely. Because they're already at a high point. Like, man, coach noticed. Oh, and I can be even better.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
well, look, if you have your kids and you give them chores, and they're supposed to clean the house, whatever they're supposed to do, and all you look for is that little speck of dust. But what do you say? You complain about the speck of dust, or do you put the speck of dust and throw it away? Come on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think you can get too detailed with the stuff. It doesn't really matter. But now, when I was getting back to with percentages, let's say I go to that 80% and it's an 8 rep max. If it's a very important lift, I will take that 80% and say we're going to do 16 reps. But what we're going to do is we're going to do 8 sets of 2, and we're going to do it in 8 minutes. So every 60 seconds, we will do a set. That's a set start. So at that 80%, boom, double zeros right now. You got 2 reps on the 1, you got 2 on the 2, you got and on through. So in 7 minutes and 5 seconds, you've hit 16 reps at that.
Now, how are you picking the 8-minute time domain there?
Because what I found to be optimal is with 1 to 2 reps every 60 seconds when I'm working percentages. If I do 3 reps, depending on the intensity, then I would go 75 seconds. 4 reps, I'll go 90 seconds. 5 reps or more, it's usually 1:45 to 2 minutes.
Okay, that's really cool. And so when I've read all about your density training, that's what I'm reading most about is learning how to apply density training for something like it could be something like chin ups, or it could be the power clean, and we're doing it in those short time domains, right? Like 8, 10, 20 minutes, something like that.
Yep.
So, but then when we first started talking, which I think will really apply to my audience, you've got a guy that wants to get 20 pull-ups for whatever reason.
Yep.
He's 40 years old. Right now he can do 10. And so when you first came out, or 6 was your first example, and you extended that out to 10 hours. Like, so that's what I was surprised at that, because I had not read that in your density, in anything that I've read about your density training, and I'm getting most of that from Dragon Door, from Pavel's stuff, from Zach Evanesh and Ross Training and those guys. That a lot has been written on their websites about density training and your work there, but all of it that I've read has been in that shorter period.
Well, that's ideally what you're getting to.
Yeah,
you're gonna look. I had a physician I worked with at Ohio University, and I said, look, you got so many patients. After so many patients, close the door, drop down, and do 10 push-ups. And how many times are you going to be able to get this throughout the day? You might be getting 250 push-ups in a day, but you won't feel it as much because what? You spread it out during that time. Now, to make it, more where you're getting more fitness, you start condensing it, and that's what you do.
Yeah, but to get the numbers, you have to start with a wide time.
Well, like I said, if he's let's say you have the guys doing 10 chin-ups in a row, then what I would do is I'd start him doing sets of 5, and I'd do 5. Now, look, ideally, we want to get him to where he's doing 10 sets of 5 in 10 minutes. And then we can start creeping it up from there. He'll be doing well over 20. Like, I've had several of those guys at Macaulay School when we did this. I'll give you, for instance, David Levitt. He did 600 chin-ups in 2 hours. But we had one guy, one of our wrestlers, who, this kid was just ripped. I watched every one of them. In 63 minutes, he got 600 chin-ups.
Wow.
So what he did is for the first set, 57 minutes, he would do the first set, he would do overhand chins, long arms at the bottom, chest to the bar at the top. He would do 10 reps every 60 seconds for 57 minutes.
Wow.
He just hit a wall. For the next 6 sets, he had to do 5s. So in 63 minutes or less, he did 600 chin-ups. Now imagine, that's density.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about.
But in order to get there, he had to start and work your density program from a much longer time frame down into that
Right.
63 minutes.
Yeah, so you might do something like at the beginning of the workout when they come in, you have them jump up and do that person do a set of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if they're only doing 10 chin-ups, and then some other time do a set of 5. And you might get 5 to 10 sets within the workout, but it's spread out over an hour.
Right.
Do it that way.
Right.
If you want to do it.
That's interesting, and that can work with anything, like
Absolutely.
push-ups. Like you have a lot of these guys that are going to they're wanting to regain their fitness. They get interested in some things that seem kind of fun, and they are. The Go Ruck challenges. You've got the Spartan races and the mud runs and stuff like that. And those, I find that those are really good for somebody maybe that has neglected their fitness, and they look at something like that and they go, "Wow, that looks really hard." And there's some prerequisites that I have to hit to be able to do one of these things. Go Ruck selection is something altogether different, but on the Go Ruck challenges, they'll usually put some published standards out there and say you got to be able to do 50 sit-ups and 50 push-ups, just with no time to make. You just have to do them.
Yeah.
And they're going to be, on standard. They're going to be on standard. Somebody's going to have their fist down there, and you're going to have to touch your chest.
Yes.
So they may start out, and they're like, well, I can do 10, right? And this thing's 3 months off. So
easy.
Right.
Easy. Yeah, that's what you do. Let's say he can only do 10, and that's it. 10, perfect. Then I'll have him do sets of 5s or sets of 3s, and I'll have him do multiple sets. Here's the difference with me is some coaches want to train people so hard they want them thrown up in a bucket, or they want them having to crawl out of the room. I don't really like that training. I didn't like it as a wrestler. My thing is when they'd come into the practice room, they wore a shirt and a pair of shorts and their wrestling shoes. And when they came in so a certain way. When they left, they better be better. They better be better at the technique or how they're going to hit a move or more flexible or stronger or a better teammate, whatever it is. But they need to leave better than when they came in. And a lot of that is not always just kicking their butt. Now, I'm not against that sometimes. You need to do that. You need to take them to failure and break them a little bit. But for the most part, I want them to feel good when they walk out. And how can I get them there without cracking them every day? You know what I mean? So they enjoy coming back. You want to keep these guys coming back here, do it to where it's fun for them. They get a sweat, they flex, that kind of stuff. But they leave. And you know what? They're not sore for the next 2 weeks from it. They actually have gotten something out of it. Man, they say, hey, I want to come back tomorrow or the next day. Let's come back and let's get that again.
And then what we do also is then we'll have these really hard ones later to where all that hard work pays off, and they're doing something that they looked on the board right there, and they're 2 months ago or last year, they look at it and this is just impossible. That's absolutely, you'd have to be crazy to do that. And then all of a sudden, with all this hard work, they find, you know what, I did it. And I had all these guys with me, and it really wasn't that bad. In fact, I want to do it again next week. And it's the same thing can be applied to high school athletes. I'm sure that things that they thought were impossible all of a sudden are now coming easy.
Yes. Look, you want them to feel confident, feel good. But for me, I have a different thing. Mine is, does it transfer? For what we do in the room or running, whatever we're doing, does it transfer to the court or the field or the wrestling mat? that's everything. If it doesn't transfer, then what are we doing?
Right.
And a lot of it has to do with them now, the athlete and the sport coach. They've got to take what I've given these guys and make it transfer. That means the skill. How do they work together? How do they play together? That's a lot of what they do. But I've got to develop a better athlete, and that's everything for me is athleticism.
Yeah.
Are they more athletic? Because look, you pick up groceries at the store, it's athletic.
Yep.
You got to pick. You have it in one hand. You got to stabilize in the other. All these things are athletic. Train everybody like they're athletes. That's the key.
Mm-hmm. And how much of that do you think is core strength as an athlete to develop athletic ability from the core out? That's what CrossFit says, core to extremity. And I thought about that, and I was like, core to extremity. That actually makes sense because you're super strong here, and then you work on your core the most. And a lot of people don't realize, like an overhead squat, one of the most core specific things. You're thinking, flutter kicks and all that, but core can mean Olympic lifting, and core can mean a lot of different things. But I think that developing the core, both front and back, not just trying to get your six pack, but like all the GHDs and all the things over there with a back extension, has been some of the most important development that I've learned. And we didn't know that in the beginning. We it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, 8 sets of 5, and doing curls. That's how we train for wrestling.
Well, we think of the core because this came from wrestling too, and basically the core is the center body. Or we use the term hips or center body, but basically from the top of the or middle thighs, front, back, sides, to the rib cage. So you have your quadriceps, your hip flexors, your hamstrings, your gluteals, your erectors, your low back, your obliques, your abdominals. All this is working together. And look, if I go like we have a thing where we make the guys climb ropes, and our goal is to get them to do 5 rope climbs, 20-foot ropes, where they've got to go hand over hand. No legs, hands only. And they got to go 20 feet up, hand under hand coming down, and the first thing that hits the mat is their rear end. They got to hit. And they do one every 2 minutes. So we got, let's say we got 28, 30 guys for the team. We got 4 ropes. So it works about right. So about 2 minutes, they can get a rope. All the guys can get a rope in. And we do that. Our goal is to get them to do 5 of those. If they can do 5 in 10 minutes during practice, we're going to have good strength. Well, what we found is the guys that can flex their core, their grip becomes stronger. And you can see the guys that grip, like if they were taking the shirt off, you'll see how they grip. Their grip is much stronger the more they engage their core. So you have to engage the core in almost everything you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So let me ask you on a different note. I have 3 kids. One is 21. He was a wrestler. My second son just left for college yesterday. It was a very sad day for my wife. Now we have 2 leaving the house. He was also a wrestler. And now I have my daughter here, who's 15. So in the time between when I was coming through Macaulay and being an athlete and now, there is far more focus placed on year-round kids athletics, single sport, year round, all the way. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Well, just like I said basically about the physical education with the young kids, I feel the same way. I think have them doing a bunch of sports. If you're in a phys ed class, which we used to go to phys ed class, and it was like this. We walked in, we had white Converse shoes, white socks, a white pair of shorts, and it had a number on the pants. And then you had a white shirt with a number, and they better match. And when you walked into the gym floor, there was a number on the side of the gym. And what happens, depending on who the teacher was, you sat on that number or you stood on that number till they came in. And they came in, took roll, that professor did, took the roll. Someone comes from the office, pick up the absentee list, and now you're ready to start. So then we'd line up, and then we start doing our jumping jacks and things like that. But that was physical education. Then after we did that for about 15 minutes, then we would play dodgeball or volleyball or badminton or basketball, whatever we had. But we would do tumbling, actually. Now, they had, back in those days, they had canvas mats with like horsehair in it. And they had the straps, and you'd have to tie it off. So all those things would lay together. So we could do our tumbling and stuff. And this was back when I was in the first, second grade, all the way at least through elementary.
Yeah.
We had to do it.
And what happened to all of that? Because the it's moved away. The education system has moved away from that type of physical education.
Yeah, I think we're doing the wrong thing. I think we're thinking that by doing more of some of the other things, that's going to make it better. But people become more complete by also taking care of their bodies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to get back to we're doing physical education. And I think we need to do it an hour a day.
Yeah. Do you think that like not only the education system, but a lot of professionals and a lot of people that get out of high school and college and move on into their professional life and neglect their fitness and neglect all of this, and then they go back to a gym and now it's a personal trainer, machines, all of this stuff. I kind of have this thought that CrossFit has been so well received because we got so far away from it. And it's like, look, nothing in CrossFit is new. Nothing.
No.
There's not one thing. In fact, the older,
old school,
the better.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, and even back to, the kettlebells. I mean, those are Russian kettlebells that, to my knowledge, you may know differently, but they were invented out of necessity. They didn't have dumbbells.
Well, we had these back in the 19-teens in physical education, but they didn't have a flat bottom. They were called kettleballs. And what they did, they had a handle on them, but you'd see them flopped all over the place. And then the Soviets, I guess, they were smart enough to cut the bottom, flatten it out, and that's where you come up with the kettlebell. But it was kettleballs, and you could see back in the 1920s in physical education, you'd have parallel bars and ropes and all kinds of things, and you'd see these kettlebells flopped all over the place. We actually used to do some of this back in those days. A lot of the strongmen used to do them, So I've always, we were the first university to ever do them in the modern age at Wake Forest University.
Wake Forest? Wow.
Back in 2001, we
You're using those across all the sports?
Every sport. I put a 26-pound, a 36, a 53, and a 72 at every station. So, like if you have 6 stations out here, I'd have one on each station. And I'd put them there so it was easy to get a hold of, so we can do swings or kettlebell clean and presses or whatever we're doing.
I always thought that if I could only have 1 or 2 exercises, the kettlebell swing would definitely be
great
one.
stuff.
I mean,
absolutely.
And that Dan John, I came across one of his workouts, and it was similar to what you're talking about. It's a 500 kettlebell swing workout.
Yeah.
So, but the way that he does it, it doesn't. I mean, you say you're going to swing kettlebell 500 times. That's sounds like a lot, but he does 50, and then there's an accessory exercise. So you do 50, and you do like 3 pull-ups. Then you do 40, 2 pull-ups. 30, and 1 pull-up. So now you're at what is that? You're at 120, and you do that 3 or 4 times, and then you end up with your.
What he's doing is what density does. You don't want it to ruin their day,
right?
And a lot of the kids I work with have still got to go to practice,
right?
Or they've got to go to compete. You don't want to do too much volume, especially too close together, and then they can't move. And then if they can't move, the coach is going, "What are you doing to these guys?
Right?
You're killing them." That's not what it's about. So density for me. Now, when you're doing CrossFit, you have the competitions. You have to get ready, just like a soccer coach has to get his team ready. That is sport specific. Now, going back to the being specific or having one sport, I think we're really hurting our athletes physically, and we're doing them a disservice by not in middle school having them in 3 sports.
Yes,
they should be in 3 sports. Club sports, I don't even care. Give the kids a summer off. Have fun. Do something different. Go to the beach. Do whatever you want to do. Let them off a little bit. In fact, when I had wrestlers, we'd finish at the end of March for the NCAA wrestling tournament. This is back in the 1980s. I didn't see them until Labor Day. I'd say, do what you want to do. Here's some workouts. If you want to do these, do it. When you come back, be ready because we're going to get after it right away.
And they knew. And they would come back. Most of them would come back ready to go.
Yeah. And we're going to get back to work. And they knew what was going to happen. So my thing is, don't overdo it. But if they were doing different sports, they're not overdeveloped in one area. And that's the key. So
I always think of like what we do here. It has to be a life enhancer. We do it at 5 o'clock in the morning, and my group is comprised almost entirely of dads that are professionals, and they've got wrestling practice, soccer practice, play practice, cheerleading, whatever in the afternoon. They got to pick up their kids. They have to go to, they want to go to these events. So if it's an afternoon kind of thing, then it just becomes inconsistent. And then if you're going to tell your wife, I got to get the workout in, I'm not going to be at the play, then that's not sustainable. That's just is not going to work. And so what we did is we found a time of the day that was our time.
That's great.
And we had to wake up earlier, right? So there's always a sacrifice in there somewhere, but the sacrifice is that you have to wake up before your family. You're not inconveniencing your family.
That's right.
Then you're getting your workout in, you're getting your fellowship in, you're getting your camaraderie, and then that also turns into mental toughness, and that's something else I wanted to explain. It's been really beneficial, but it has to be a life enhancer. And like if someone comes to me sometimes and they're like, I just can't do the 5 o'clock, I'm too tired at work and I'm falling asleep, and it's like, fine, man, then you need to find something else that's great. Just try to find something else that works. Maybe if it's at lunch, you got to do that, but keep your fitness up, because that is a life enhancer in itself, the fitness. But you just have to find a time of day, and it doesn't have to be CrossFit. It doesn't have to be weightlifting at all. It could be racquetball or trail running or something, but you have to find a time to do it, and something that's fun, and usually a group to do it with.
Yeah, because you want them to come back.
Right.
So they repeat it. Usually when I get a person that starts training, I'll say, let's spend 12 minutes today. And for the first 21 days, let's keep it easy. Because I want you to come back every day. I want you to enjoy doing this. I don't want you to be so sore you don't want to. Then we can start increasing after that 21 days. We can start picking up a little bit more where you enjoy it. And but the thing is, if it ruins their day or the next 2 or 3 days, it's going to be hard to get them back.
Right.
And so you've got to make it somewhat fun for them. And now with wrestlers, hard work is fun. So it's a little bit different with that. But I've got to send some athletes out there to compete. If they're sore all the time, they're complaining to their coach, they don't want to be here anymore, they don't want to do it, that's not really good. So how can I get them there and do it slowly? Some of them just need to stretch more.
Right.
Be honest.
And when you're doing that, one or two more questions on this, but when you're doing that for, let's just say wrestling, because that's the sport that maybe you know the best or that I know the best, how are you managing the preseason to the competition season? Where's the volume and the intensity coming in? And are you, like, as you get closer to the competition season, are you pulling back on one or the other?
Yeah, what I'll do is, let's say, we had the wrestlers today that they basically run the workouts on their own this week. So I give them a workout. They came in and they did high-low hurdles and the medicine balls, and we did rope skipping for about 3 minutes, 3 30-second goes. And then they did power cleans, 50, 60, 70, and 80 for 4 reps on each set. Then we did the same with the front squats. Then we had them do bench press, where they did 10, 8, 6, 4, up to 80% for 4, supersetted with bent rows. And we had certain set starts. So let's say that at the power clean and the front squat, it was like 90-second set start. So as soon as you got through your 4, your other buddy got through 4, you change the weights, be ready, we're calling you up. So 90 seconds were done like in 6 minutes for the power clean, 6 minutes for the front squats, probably 8 minutes for the bench press and bent rows. So we're finished with that. Then we had them do wrestler twist. We had them do just one set of 10 and 10. We had them hold a plank for 2 minutes, and then we did we did RDLs for their body weight. So if you weighed 185, you put 185 and you do 10 reps on the RDL. We only did one set, and then we finished with what we call a finisher, a leader finisher. And what we do is we break the workout down as athletic warm-up, team lifts that everybody does. Then we do partner circuit. Now, normally I have more than one circuit going through. And what I'll try to do is get it to where they can choose from some kind of ab, some kind of hamstring low back, and some kind of torque. It could be a one-arm bench. One-arm bench came from wrestling. That was me back in the 70s. Because I found that one-arm bench really worked the core if you put the other hand on your belly. And we started doing that with wrestling as well. And boy, it really, now football uses it, a lot of teams use it.
Yeah.
But we do a finisher at the end. So our finisher would be a leader finisher. We let them choose normally, but I'll sometimes just put it up there. But today they chose to do, it's 7 minutes. A finisher is 7 minutes because it's a 7-minute match. So they do 7 sets of chin-ups and 7 sets of dips. So they're doing 7 chins, 7 dips every minute for 7 minutes. So they're finished in 6.5 minutes or whatever with 49 chins and 49 dips. And that's our finisher. So when they leave, they're jacked up a little bit.
Yeah.
But they feel good.
And before that, you were saying that you had partner circuits. What is that?
Partner circuit is where if you're doing the wrestler twist and you're doing 10, okay, I'm counting your reps.
Yeah.
And then he counts mine.
I got you.
You count mine.
I got
so that is your rest period.
Yes.
And then you go to the next thing. What is the next thing? Let's say it's RDLs. So I do my 10, you do your 10. I count. We're trying to we're doing that with the team lifts and everything else. But again, be a good partner. Be a good teammate.
Yeah.
And now when you get in the finisher, you might be doing dips, he's doing chins. So you just switch it.
Yeah.
So it's not as much but the whole team is working together.
But you're on that chin up dip one that you're saying you're factoring in rest in that you're waiting on your partner, or it's just going full speed as hard as you can go.
I go do my 7 chins, my 7 dips, and hopefully I've got a little bit of rest to recover.
Right. But it's every minute on the minute.
Every minute. Yeah. We call them 60-second or 1-minute set starts.
Yeah.
So you're starting. Everybody is how much rest do you get? Whatever they can figure out to get
right.
But the thing I'm looking for is when you do a chin up, and I'll show you that you want to get long arms at the bottom. You need to muscle. It's not the CrossFit chin. There's no kicking. What you actually do is you want to flex the quads and flex the glutes, and it is just pure pull. I want to see that they are getting strong with that. Control it up, control it down. Dips the same way. Don't just slop through things. Do things right.
Nice.
Do it the right way. So they do it. So they're actually getting strong.
Yeah.
And especially through that range of motion. Now the dips, I don't have them usually go real deep. At least, tricep parallel to the ground. Yeah.
That's cool. You might like this. One of the things that it's one of my favorite things that we'll do here is we'll pick 3 exercises in 2-man team. And so say it's 10 assault bike calories, 10 kettlebell swings, 10 wall balls, or 10 pull-ups, or whatever.
Good stuff.
And so you're waiting on your partner to do the 10 assault bike, and then as soon as he calls your name, which I always have them call their name because then it's more camaraderie, and it's
right. I love it.
And then if you're with a partner like that is better than you, your rest time is going to be less because the intensity is going to be ratcheted up.
Yeah.
But anyway, he finishes the calories, calls your name. You start on the kettlebell swings. He moves up here to the wall balls.
Good stuff.
And then you call his name, and then you go back to the deal. And you can do it with any 3 exercises, but whenever that comes, there's a love-hate relationship with it because people are like, oh, great, this is going to be great. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a partner here, but, oh, man, that guy's going to be my partner, so I'm going to have virtually no rest.
Yeah.
But I love that format.
Yeah, but here's because I'm an educator, here's what you're creating. You're creating better coworkers at work.
Yeah.
You're creating better fathers, better husbands, better grandfathers, that they're not just thinking about themselves. That is the whole key to all this.
Yeah.
Is be somebody that cares about somebody other than just yourself. That's what I do. That's what education is for me. Whether he got it perfect on a clean, I'll let him. We'll clean that up. But were you a good teammate?
Yeah.
Were you standing there? And so when a kid says, "Coach, that's your job. You coach him," man, see, that disappoints me. Somebody that just doesn't care.
Yeah.
You got to care about your fellow human being, just like you care about your dog and your children and everything else. You got to care about somebody.
It's interesting that you immediately key to that because last night I had one of my guys send me a message saying that he's up for a much higher position at his business, and he had to write out this long piece of information about himself. And he said, you wouldn't believe how much the workout and what we do here came up in my thoughts about, like, for instance, not everybody in here. We have some old wrestlers in my group, but so many people, for whatever reason, just didn't get. It didn't quite sink in like it does with wrestlers that, hard work pays, grit, determination, discipline, and later in life you can come up with that and bring that back into people's lives that I mean, obviously they have had a great deal of success, but this is that life enhancer of discipline, determination, grit,
Yeah, what you're doing is, look, we like to think of the goal, like at Alabama football. They want to win the national championship. You want to do it. But what Nick Saban does is really important, and it's what I do, and Dan Gable's done this. A lot of the other, not putting myself in that category, but very successful coaches have done is they've gotten the kids to believe in the process.
Yes.
And what you do is, I'll just tell you a quick story. If you want to hear a good story, it's a story that was told to me back in when I was a sophomore in high school, or I read about it. It's a Zen parable. Basically, there's this man, he's walking in this field, and he comes upon this tiger, and the tiger gives chase. The guy's got nowhere to go but to dive off this cliff. So he dives off this cliff, and about midway down, he grasps onto this vine, and he's holding onto this vine for dear life. He looks up, and there's that tiger, and he can hear the growl. He can feel the hot breath of that tiger. To his dismay, directly below him, on the ground, is another tiger walking around waiting for him to drop off the vine. Right above where his hands are clasped onto the vine are two mice, one black and one white, and they're gnawing on the vine. But directly in front of him is this earthen ledge, and this has this plant. In the middle of the plant is a nice big juicy strawberry. So he grasps on as tight as he can with one hand, takes his other hand, reaches in there, grabs that strawberry, puts it in his mouth, closes his eyes, and says to himself, how sweet it tastes. Now, what do these characters represent? The tiger above him is his past life. If you try to relive it, like I can't go back and do 10 sets of 10 on power cleans at my body weight. I'm 64 years old. It's a little bit different animal today. But I've learned a lot from the past. There are things that I can carry over from the past, but I can't relive it. The tiger down below is your sure and ultimate death. We're all going. We're not going to leave this world alive. We're all going to die. The two mice on the vine is day and night, and it's just ticking away. And, we've got so much time. That's the way it is. But that ledge, that earthen ledge where the strawberry is the present moment. We're sharing time right now. You have a movie in your mind. I've got a movie in my mind. We're sharing this movie in this podcast. What happens is that living in that process and being married to the process is what makes you get through. So it's basically living in the moment. Enjoy every moment that you have. When you're eating, when you're sleeping, when you're with your kids, when you're out here training, whatever it is, enjoy it. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the future. Live in the present. And that's the thing that I learned a long time ago. So what I do is I try to teach kids to enjoy the process. When you come in the room, feel flexing. Feel what it's like to be pushing your teammate and working. You'd feel good. Live that and live in that process and enjoy it. And that's, if I can give anybody some advice, and where you don't have a lot of worries, don't have a lot of problems, that's it. Enjoy the moment.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I find it interesting that you would be able to process that as a 16-year-old sophomore in high school. Does it mean something different to you today than it meant at 16, or were you just ready to receive that information?
You got more information. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Through the process. Yeah, but I had kind of the idea about it, but it's crystallized a lot more as you get older. It becomes a lot more important.
Yeah, that thought is popular right now with a lot of books and people, living in the now, living in the moment. But that I love that parable that you had. That is, I've never heard that before.
Well, I've told that story almost every time I speak to coaches, strength coaches, wrestling coaches. I tell them that that's it. That's the thing. Like, if you go to, we're going to say Nick Saban because he's the most successful. Obviously, he has good athletes. But he also takes good athletes and he wins with them. So he's doing something. But when you go into his practice, every drill is important. Everything he's doing is important. It's in that moment, that time, that is what's important. Live in that moment and do it. Don't think about winning a national championship. Don't think about this or that. Get in that moment and enjoy it and give your best effort in everything that you do. And if you do that,
well, then it's that series of doing that now and in 5 minutes and 5 minutes after that and 5 minutes after that, and all those add up into a perfect preparation.
now I'm
Really?
going to tell you a joke. Tell you a thing about this. It's not a joke on that, but it's about the story. So I go over to China, and I'm telling this story to the Chinese rowing coaches because a buddy of mine who used to coach when I was at Macaulay and I was doing the U.S. women's rowing team, Hartmut Buschbacher. Anyway, he was asked to be the 2012 Olympic coach for the Chinese team. So he says, I want you to come over, work with these girls for about 2 weeks. So I went over and worked with the national rowers and got to work with the coaches and stuff. And I tell the story to the national coaches, and of course they don't understand English, but they had an interpreter, so he's telling the story to them. And one of the guys goes, he stands up and he goes, why don't you just hold on to the rope with one hand, take the other hand, and knock those two mice off the vine? I'm going, well, that would cure a lot of that. Stop time right there. That would do it.
That would do it. I don't know if that's possible. I don't think it's possible to stop time though. But you do have to live in the moment, and I think that is true happiness is enjoying this moment, because you can't do anything about what's already happened. I mean, you can learn from it, but you can't do anything about the future.
Well, what it does is it makes you grateful for every little thing. So, like, you get up in the morning, and I don't know if you're getting coffee before, but let's just say I'm not a coffee drinker much, but I used to be. But these guys come in, they work hard, they got a sweat going, they're going back, get a shower, they get that cup of coffee, they're driving to work. Man, that cup of coffee tastes so good. You're grateful for that cup of coffee. You're grateful that you're driving in this car, that you got a car that drives, it's got gasoline in it.
Yeah.
You know, you're grateful for everything in your life. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what living in the moment does for you.
We have a practice. I was going to see if this T-shirt was down here. I just had my birthday yesterday, and the guys made me a T-shirt. But we have this practice that I write on that board right there, and it's like we'll do a finisher like you do. But one of the finishers that I like to do is I just write gratitude, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I set the clock for 10 minutes. We lay down here, and I don't even know where I came across this practice, but you start very, very small with your heart, and you just think, you know, everybody closes their eyes, and my wife looks out the window and thinks we're all lost our minds, but we're laying down, and everything's super quiet, and you just think about your heart, and you think about, I'm so happy and grateful that I have a heart that allows me to do this workout, and then
great.
you know, then you take it out a little bit further. I'm happy and grateful that I have a body that is healthy, and you can go as far into it as you want. Like, I'm so grateful that I overcame this, or that I'm super healthy, or whatever. Then you push it out a little further. I'm happy and grateful for the most important people in my life, your wife, your kids, whatever.
Yeah.
Push that circle out a little bit further. I'm so happy and grateful for my parents' health, and whoever the next little circle is, and then whoever the next little circle, and whatever the next little circle is, your business, I'm so happy and grateful I live in a beautiful place, and I have these friends, and the next thing you know, you've pushed that out to a really large place, and the 10 minutes is up, and you have started your day with physical activity, ending with gratitude, and it's one of the most important things we do here.
Oh, it's super stuff.
It's incredible, and even if it 5 minutes is enough to really get yourself into that place. But I don't know where I came across that, but it has it's been so grateful or so powerful in my life and the lives of the people that are here. The other thing that one of my Navy SEAL friends told me was, when you wake up in the morning, your one foot hits the ground and you say thank, and the next foot hits the ground and you say you. Thank you, all the way to the bathroom. Yeah. And again, you anchor in gratitude, just being thankful.
Yeah, something I do personally is that, and that's, by the way, those are great things, very similar to what I do. First thing I get up in the morning, I put my feet on the ground. Of course, my knees creak a little bit more than they used to, but I say this to myself 10 times. Today is a great day. Today is a great day. And for the last 3 or 4 years, I have not taken a warm shower. I've only taken cold showers. So the coldest shower that I can get in it's like, when you get up in the morning and you get that cold shower, it's cold. And I mean, you're sitting, you might be on the toilet, you brush your teeth, then you got to go get in that shower. You're trying to prolong it, but you get in it, and man, once you get in it, it just lights you up. You're shivering.
Yes.
But it starts the day with an adversity, something you've overcome. Do you know the rest of your day is easy after that? And it's an amazing thing. But you got to try that sometime.
Well,
just do nothing but cold showers, and I'll tell you,
I'm quite aware of that.
Good.
Do you know Wim Hof?
Oh, yeah.
The Wim Hof Method. So I've been doing the Wim Hof Method since 2015, I think. So 3 years, and that's part of his practice is cold showers. Now I don't do them all the time, but I do. I have the ice bath over there, and I've got the big ice machine here, and I do that as much for recovery as anything else.
Great.
But that Wim Hof Method, and if you don't know what the Wim Hof Method is, Wim Hof is a Dutch. If you read about him online, it will call him a Dutch thrill seeker or a Dutch world record holder or whatever. But basically, he had some adversity in his life, and he learned that through breathing and through cold water immersion, he says he was just drawn to the cold water, and the way that getting into the cold water made him breathe. He realized that he was overcoming some depression because his wife killed herself.
Yeah.
And he was overcoming some depression, and he was doing some things that he had an innate understanding of, like he was changing his autonomic immune system through this breathing. And the breathing is 30 breaths in as deeply as you can possibly go, and rather quickly, in and out, in and out, in and out. And then on the last one, you breathe in, and then you breathe all the way out to where your lungs are completely deflated, and you hold it there. And some people can hold it for a long time, like 4 or 5 minutes.
Wow.
And then you breathe in one big one and hold that for, sometimes you hold it for 30 seconds, sometimes for a minute, and then you repeat that 3 or 4 times. And then you can end this with a set of push-ups. And the first time that I ever show anyone this, we'll do a benchmark beforehand one day. Like if I'm going to show you this breathing, I'll ask you to do the push-ups today, and then we'll start the breathing tomorrow. So they'll do a set of push-ups, and I don't really care any style. Whatever you're going to do tomorrow, I want you to do that today. And they'll get 30 push-ups, right? Then we do the breathing. And with no air in their lungs, they'll do 50 or 60 push-ups.
Wow.
And nobody can believe it, because maybe some of these people have never done 60 push-ups in a row.
Wow.
But there's this whole oxygenation of the system. But I just think that it is. I think it's just a total reset that allows you to go deeper into your physical abilities than you thought were possible before. But I've tried many forms of meditation and head clearing and stuff like that without a whole lot of luck, honestly. Until I found this Wim Hof method, and then it's just like,
so you really do it.
Yeah. Every morning I start the day before I work out. I do it every day.
Now you need to. My wife is the director of the North Spring Center for Rejuvenation. Have you ever been over there?
Yes, I have.
Okay, you know Susan then.
Yeah,
my wife.
Okay.
She's
That's great. I love the cold room.
Okay.
And
have I seen you over there?
I don't think so. But
No.
my friend Reggie, you did run into my friend Reggie,
Okay.
and he was telling you about this group and everything.
Okay. Yes.
And I think it was when you first got into town. And he told me, he's like, "Man, I met this guy today." I'm like, "I know exactly who that is." Yeah, let's get him over here and have him teach us a few things.
Yeah. Wow.
But that's there's just so much of that goes into this physical culture, and that's what when people ask about what it is that we're doing, it's hard to even describe, because it seems like from the outside that it's all hard workouts, and it seems like that we're trying to kill ourselves with these hard workouts. But these hard workouts are a function of ramping up the training until you're prepared for a really, really, really super hard one, and then doing the super hard ones really is not beneficial to the body as it is beneficial to the mind. And that's one of the things that I was going to ask you about. For instance, if you train some very, very athletic young people, there are many people who are extremely good athletes that probably have more athletic ability than other people, but you have one person that emerges as a champion. Sometimes that is straight up athletic ability. But most times, in my observations, and I don't have as many observations as you do, but most, and especially this is true in wrestling, you'll see people that when they first started, you didn't think that they were going to stick with it, and they turn out to be a 2-time state champion, or take it even further. And it was a weak little kid that walked into the room, and he walks out just an absolute world beater. So that's in the head, right? Because athletically, he never stacked up to his peers.
Yeah. Here's the deal. We want to make them as best athlete, or try to get them to maximize their potential. Some kids have great ability. There's another thing though, and that's the skill. And the best wrestlers that I've ever known were guys that could drill. I mean, hundreds of thousands of repetitions over and over and over again. Maybe they were not as good athletes starting out generally, but they made themselves into a good tennis player or a good wrestler because of the repetition. And not just repetition, quality repetition.
Right.
And that's where the density comes in. You can take density and you can apply this to skill of sport. You can, because I did density when I coached wrestling. I also do it when I use for hill runs or stairs or whatever I'm doing. I use density in almost everything that I do, or everything that I do in training kids. That's how I use it. But what happens is now you're talking about being specific to the sport. And that goes beyond what you and I are going to do. That's a kid that's going to say, I'm going to really focus. They start to get a feel for the sport. You know, and that's like you look at a good linebacker in football or a good midfielder in soccer. He's not always the one moving around all the time. Oh, yeah, he's so fast. Maybe he's not as athletic, but he knows where to be, and that's the same feel for a wrestler. They just don't overdo it. They know where their position is. It's kind of like algorithms. You know what I mean? They're going to put themselves and not go beyond that, which is the same sort of thing we use with our training called the 80-20 rule. 80-20 rule basically is taking the top 20% of the most important things you can actually do that's going to give you the best athleticism, or whatever the best in whatever sport it is. Take that 20% and do it 80% of the time. And take the 80% that's left over and you condense that into 20% or whatever you want to take out of it. But the most important thing is take the top 20% and do it 80% of the time. And that's how you have your success.
Yeah.
And that basically is basics. Doing basics. The teams that do the basics over and over and over again, like you say a power clean, a squat or a deadlift or chin-ups, do those ad nauseum till you're so good at it, who's going to beat you?
Right.
I mean, they just can't beat you. You're good. Same with blocking and tackling or double legs or fireman's carries or whatever you're good at, because you've done it so much, they can't stop you.
Right. But there's still a mental game. There's still a how are you training or bringing that into your training? Because I know that you do, and I know that you value that very much, but I don't know what you're doing.
Okay, it goes to this. Let's say I have I had two tennis players coming today, and we have some deficiencies in their flexibility in the hips, not as good in the hips, and I'm making them do these hurdles, making them do stretching, and they're not very good. They said, we're not very good at this, and they were like, you know, some people say, I quit. I'm not good at this. I'm not going to do this. And I said, no, I know you're not very good at it now, but when you get good at it, watch what happens to your tennis. I'll give you a story. I had a baseball pitching coach when I was at Ohio University. It's in the middle of the winter, and we've already been training with some of the baseball players. And I see him coming from the convocation center over to the weight room, and it's snowing. I mean, it has really come down. I see him, and I'm thinking, okay, he's coming over to talk to me. What's he going to talk about? You know, but I was big on having him do plyometrics, one-legged jumps, two-legged jumps, a lot of tumbling and cartwheels and ladder drills and bag drills and things to get him to be athletic, as well as teach him how to do cleans and squats and other things. He comes over and says, you know, these guys they're a couple guys, they just don't understand why we're doing this. And I said, well, Coach, you had them in your office. You had the opportunity to tell them why we're doing it. Obviously, I need to explain it to you too. And I thought I had, you know. But I said, Coach, here's what all you need to tell them. Just tell them this. We've got a good strength coach over in the weight room. do what he says, and here's what he told me. When you get good at what you're doing, what he's having you do, you'll know why. You'll know why you did it. So now I see him coming back. Now it's June. Season's over. I see him walking across the street, and he says, man, Ethan, he says, those were the best. This past season was the best season these guys ever had. I said, I know. I'm just telling you. I know what I'm talking about. Master things. Take those things you're not very good at, a cartwheel, a forward roll, a snatch, or a clean, or a kettlebell swing, whatever you're doing. You're not good at it. Get good at it. Master it, and you'll see how it transfers. It's an amazing thing. But do something to be athletic. Those are the ones, because they'll fight through it and they'll work through it to master it. And it's like if you go into a wrestling room and you see these guys drilling, you could actually, the ones that are really, really good at it, you could play music and you're thinking they're dancing.
Yeah.
They're doing like, hip heist drills or whatever they're doing. And it's beautiful to watch. And that's what you want to see. Mm-hmm. So those are the kids that are going to be more mentally tough. They're coachable. They're teachable. Any great champion, the Olympic champions, world champions, national champions, state champions that I've ever worked with, one thing that was true to almost every one of them, they were coachable. You know why? Because they wanted to be good. So they were there and go, man, they're listening with their eyes, their ears, their heart. They want to be good. So they're coachable. The ones that aren't, that won't maximize their potential, won't go as far. And that's something that I found to be true. The mental toughness thing is you put them through some adversity, you test them a little bit, you find out who's going to work through it. But it's not always what's found in the weight room. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's some guys that were like these Jujitsu gyms. Some of the weakest guys on those teams are world champions. Yeah. They just know how to use their strength. They just know how to use it. They're tough. They're just got a toughness to them. Right. They're fighters.
Yeah, and a lot of that toughness is between the ears of
absolutely.
Wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, those kind of tennis, swimming, same kind of deal. It's you against someone else in front of a lot of people, and there are a lot of games that can start being played in your head. Like that guy looks bigger than you. On and on. I didn't sleep well last night. On and on. To be able to have a method of clearing your head, of knowing, and I think that's what a lot of what you're getting into right now is by mastering something basic, you're developing confidence, you're developing a mental ability to know that you can overcome, and that translates to the mat.
Yeah, you master those things, and then go back to the story about living in the moment. That way, you don't have no worries. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to get a little butterflies before a match, but you shouldn't lose sleep over it.
Right.
You just get up the next morning and say, let's go, man. Strap it on. Let's go. I had one kid named Chris Artolona. He's a tough kid. He beat a guy that was a national champion. And we go to this tournament. He's laying in the stands. Now, I've already worked him out for the day to get him warmed up, but we're in the tournament. And I go over there. I said, Chris, what are you doing? He says, Coach, I'm sitting there. They're the speakers. When they call my name, I go to the mat. He says, have you checked the charts? Who you're wrestling next? He says, you're wrestling O'Shea, national champion, O'Shea. He says, O'Shea. When they call my name, I show up and I go wrestling. And that's it. He goes out and beats the guy. But he has that attitude. Some people have that. They just have the ability to do that. I'm just looking for you have to have fighters. You have to have kids that are fighters. Kids, they've got to be married to resistance. They love the toughness. They love the resistance. They love hard things that make you tough. The ones that are always trying to get out of things, man, that's a tough thing to cross. That's a tough thing to bring in.
Yeah. Well, I think everything that we've talked about, I mean, really every single thing that we've talked about translates into the business world and into the to the everyday world of your family or whatever. I think wrestling in particular is a microcosm of life. It is everything that happens in life with extreme intensity and with bad results. Obviously, if you're not prepared, it's going to show. Yeah. If you are mentally not in the game, it's going to show, and it's going to be painful, and you're going to pay for it. I think that's one of the things that has benefited me the most, is just taking what was learned in wrestling, and some of these things that I learned in wrestling, I didn't realize I learned them for another 10 or 12 years after stopping the sport. And then some of them, having 2 boys that went through the program, you don't even realize them until you're a wrestling parent. Of now you're trying to communicate this to a young person, and they're not quite getting it, but I'm learning, and I'm thinking, wow, this is, if I had just known when I was his age what I know now, and how can I communicate that to him? And in a lot of ways, it's impossible to communicate that to them. They have to learn that on their own, and hopefully in 10 years after they leave the sport, they will be having the same kind of revelations that I am of, now I see.
I get it, yeah. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing how smart they become when they're in their 30s and they come back to thank you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's the quote. I've always heard it attributed to Mark Twain, but he said something of, when I was 18, I thought my dad was the dumbest person in the world, and when I turned 28, I couldn't believe how much he had learned in 10 years.
That's amazing.
Let me just check my notebook here. I had a couple of things I wanted to definitely ask you about mental strength, which we did cover. Now I know that you kept a lot of records. In a couple of the articles that I read, it said that you had kept records in notebooks of every workout that you.
Yeah, I still have those. I think they're somewhere stored somewhere. But
yeah,
I used to keep every practice minute for minute, and then what I do is evaluate. I actually never evaluated the guys. I always evaluated myself as a coach.
Right.
Because if I asked the wrestlers to get better every day, then I've got to do my part to try to be a better coach every day.
Yeah. So with all that experience and all of these different things, not just wrestling, because you went to Wake Forest and you coached all these different sports. They didn't have a wrestling program there, right? So when you look at some of those the practices and the way that you were doing things many years ago, as you learn more, are there things that you would change, or did you feel like you were on a really good path from a long time ago?
Well, it really depends on a lot of the things that were done that I did back then will work today. Absolutely work today. I think I've gotten a little bit better and with creating volume and intensities off of 1 rep maxes and things like that, because my big thing was always did think with wrestling off of body weight, how much reps off your. So we do like I said, we do the 10 sets of 10 with your body weight on power clean something, but I'm still going to clean, still going to squat, still going to push press, still going to deadlift, still going to snatch, still going to do those things because they work. Really, if we were to go into the weight room and we just did power clean and jerk, squat clean and jerk, power snatches, front squat, back squat, some kind of lunge or one-legged squat, and that's all we did, I know we could win. The problem you have is because kids are always wanting to go from one to the other and then always changing, you need to change it up a little bit. And that's what I've learned, is to try to make it so everybody's a little more happy and try to get really the kids more engaged. And what would you like to do? What do you think would be good? But I still have that base of things that I know we're going to do. It's kind of like when Dan Gable walks in the room, he goes, hey, these 2 hours are mine. These are my 2 hours. After this, you guys do what you want to do. But in this is what we're going to do. This is what you're going to do, what I'm going to tell you to do. And I think you have to have some of that because you're the professional. You know how to work with these guys out here. You're good at what you do. There are certain things you got to do. But to give them some choice or some decision making, then they take ownership in that kind of stuff. And I never really I'm not taking credit for anybody. I've worked with a lot of successful people, but you don't take credit for them. You've worked with them. Right. And, I'm happy, I'm grateful that I could work with those kind of guys or girls, so.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for sitting down with me. I've had a lot of questions for you, and certainly wasn't disappointed. You really know your stuff, and I'm glad to have you back at UTC, and look forward to seeing how that's going to affect the program there.
Well, I tell the coaches, and the first thing you got to do is you've got to get to the coaches, because the coaches make the difference. Because if the kids come and complain about something, you don't want the coach to fold. So the coach got to say, hey, look, get in there. We're going to work. But for the most part, you sell it to the coach, and I told the coach it's going to take about a year to a year and a half for this stuff to really set. But once you do, and it's in, all the new incoming freshmen, they pick it up quicker because the whole team does it
Right.
now. Everybody's got the new ones will come in and pick it up a lot quicker. Just
Nice.
like when you get new people coming in,
Mm-hmm.
guess what I mean? Man, they because everybody's doing it, they've got to step up.
Right.
You know, so, and that's really what's happening. And pretty soon we're winning championships again. So that's what I'm here for.
Good. Well,
All
I
right.
wish you all the luck in the world.
Well, thank you, buddy.
All right.
Appreciate you.
See ya.
Okay.